Alright, so now we look at part B of question 3 from the past paper. So the May-June 2019 past paper. So let f of x be equal to cos x plus 2 sin x. Express f in the form r sine of x plus alpha, where alpha is an acute angle. So what we want to do is we want to rewrite cos of x plus 2 sin x in the form r sine of x plus alpha. Now what we need to recall is the angle sum. So the sine of a plus b is equal to, so what I usually say to remember this is that sine is kind. So what it does is it shares what it has with cos, and also it doesn't change the sign. So sine of a plus b is sine of a times cos of b plus cos of a times sine of b. Now applying this here, we have cos x plus 2 sin x is equal to r sine x cos alpha plus r cos x sine alpha. So x, our x would be a, or alpha would be b. So that would give us the expansion. And also remember here, we're multiplying by r. So we multiply each term by r. The next step is to equate the coefficients. So here we have cos x, cos of x, and here, well, this is cos of alpha, but we're looking for cos of x. So here we have cos of x. On the left hand side, the coefficient of cos of x is 1. And on the right hand side, the coefficient of cos x is r sine alpha. Remember that alpha is just an acute angle, sine of an acute angle, or sine of any angle. That will just be a value. R is also a value. So r times sine alpha, that's just another value. Alright, so 1 will be equal to r sine alpha. If we look at sine of x, so sine x, on the left hand side, the coefficient is 2. On the right hand side, the coefficient, so sin x, the coefficient will be r cos alpha. Now, probably something I should have pointed out a little earlier is that we're really trying to find r and alpha. Now, I know there's a formula for finding alpha and r. However, I would prefer if you found alpha using this method, because sometimes based on how the question is structured, I've seen where they've made some simple errors, and because of that they weren't able to find alpha. Yes, so they found the incorrect alpha because of how the question was shuffled. Taking this approach will minimize that error, or the likelihood of that error. Alright, so we have 1 is equal to r sine alpha, that's our equation 1. 2 is equal to r cos alpha, that's equation 2. Now what we want is we are going to divide, so we're going to combine both equations, but we're going to combine them by dividing. But in particularly, we want to have sine divided by cos. That's crucial. It's crucial that we have sine being divided by cos. Now, sine is in equation 1 and cos is in equation 2, so we're going to say equation 1 divided by equation 2. Now, 1 divided by 2, that's a half. And r sine alpha divided by r cos alpha, you can probably write this out. So r sine alpha over r cos alpha, you see that the r's will cancel. And sine alpha divided by cos alpha is just tan alpha. So that gives us a half is equal to tan alpha. And of course, we can solve for alpha and get alpha to be 0.464 radians. Now for r is equal to 1 squared plus the square root rather of 1 squared plus 2 squared. So r is just the square root of 5. Now in general, to find r, what we do is r will be equal to the square root of the sum of the squares of the coefficient. So whatever is the coefficient of sine and cos, on the left hand side here. We square them and take the sum, and then we find the square root of that value. If you want, I can create another video further explaining how to find r. You can just request that in the comment section if needed. Alright, so cos x plus 2 sin x then is equal to, so substituting the values of r and alpha, we have the square root of times sine of x plus 0.464 radians. And that would give us our 5 marks. Now, the follow-up question for 3 marks was find the solution of cos x plus 2 sin x. Now remember that cos x plus 2 sin x, we found that to be this guy here. So the square root of 5 times sine of x plus 0.464 radians. So equating that to 0, we can divide throughout by root 5, and that gives us sine of x plus 0.464 radians to be equal to 0. Hence, we can say that x plus 0.464 radians is equal to sine inverse of 0, which is 0. Now, using our knowledge of the general equation for sine, we have x plus 0.464 radians is equal to n pi plus negative 1 to the n times 0. So whatever we get for the acute angle here, that's what we'd put here. In this case, lucky for us, it's 0, so it works out a little easy. So here x is equal to n pi minus 0.464 radians. So we just transpose, and of course n is an integer, so n belongs to the set of integers, and that would be our solution. The third part of this question, for another 3 marks, says determine the minimum value of 2 divided by 2 minus f. Now, if we think about this, we'll get a minimum value. So the bigger the denominator gets, then the smaller this overall value will be. So the minimum value will occur when 2 minus f is at a maximum. So when 2 minus f is at the biggest possible value that it can be. Now recall that f is just the square root of 5 times sine of x plus 0.464 radians. And if you bring your minds back to the idea of sine and cosine, you'll remember that they are bounded between -1 and 1. So just go ahead and look at the sine or the cosine graph, and you'll realize that both are bounded by -1 and 1. So the largest possible value that this part here, so sine of x plus 0.464 radians, can take is 1. And the smallest possible value that it can take is -1. So this part here can be either 1 for the maximum value or -1. Now, if it is 1, then we would have root 5 times 1. So f would be root 5. And 2 minus root 5. So if we plug f as root 5 here, then 2 minus root 5, square root of 5 is 2 point something, would be some negative number. If we take if we take this here as -1, so sine of x plus 0.464 as -1, then we would have root 5 times -1, which is negative root 5, and then substitute in here 2 minus root 5 is 2 plus root 5, which is definitely bigger than some negative number. So it means that this here will be at a maximum when f is equal to negative root 5. So substituting x as negative root 5, the minimum value should be 2 minus negative root 5, which is 2 divided by 2 minus negative root 5, which is the same as 2 divided by 2 plus root 5. So this here would be the minimum value of 2 divided by 2 minus f.